I'm out on the mountaintops of South Wales. It's mid-December. I'm wearing trail runners. It's a bit breezy. I'm using a Lanshan tent. Let's see how I get on. Well, hello again everyone. It seems like a lifetime since I was doing this last time, but I'm out in the hills again. Finally left the hustle and bustle of the roads behind, and I'm up onto the footpath onto the hills now. It feels so good to be up here in the path in the wild. Of course, I'm saying that before I get to any of the steep bits. So much for me thinking I was in good shape. The first climb has got the heart pumping a bit. We're in mid-December, and inevitably that means that the temperatures are going to be quite cold on the tops. There's been a lot of rain, heavy rain lately, so it's going to be quite squelchy. So that means that this isn't just a standard two-nighter up in the hills. That I have been keeping a very close eye on the weather forecast, so I'm not going to be crazy. So there's no snow or ice on the ground, which helps. I've also been looking at the wind forecast, and it doesn't look too bad, and the spots that I'm planning to pitch aren't very exposed. I could speak at length about trail runners, but I'll keep it brief. I personally am a big fan of them. Ever since I used them on the Cape Wrath Trail, they have lots of advantages over traditional walking boots. My Topo Athletic mountain racers weigh, I don't know, around 350 grams for a pair, and that's got to be a kilo lighter than an equivalent pair of leather walking boots. And if you're spending, as I'm going to be, 2-3 days stomping around in the hills, that's going to make a big difference to your stamina and fatigue. Now granted, the trail runners have their limitations, but I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. The ground is very wet. It's been raining heavily for the last few days, so I think this is where the trail runners could come into their own, because they do dry out very quickly, and they aren't particularly much heavier when they're wet either. And likewise, the tent I'm using, I know very well. I know its limitations, I know its strengths, and I know it's going to cope with the conditions fine. The tent weighs about 1.5 kilos with the modifications I've made to it, the footprint, the pegs all included. Now it'd be lovely to be up here with a nice Hillside tent in the pack, but with the best will in the world, that would weigh at least 1 kilogram more than the Lanshan does. I'm thinking that by using lighter footwear and using a lighter tent, in some ways I'm going to be safer and have a more enjoyable time. So that's my thinking. Let's see if the next 2 days prove me right. I really love this feeling that as you climb up into the hills, the views open up as well. We've got a wintry sun, it's low in the sky, so the shadows on the other side of the valley on the hillside look fantastic right now. I've been doing training walks at home, but stomping around the heathland and woods of North Hampshire is never going to be a match for these hills, this environment. Oh, it's doing excellent. Black Mountain's got quite a few plane crash sites dotted around it, mostly from Second World War era, and a few after that, planes who for various reasons struck the hillsides, and lots of sad loss of life, and this is one of them. is the wreckage of Wellington that was being flown by a Canadian crew in the Second World War, and the wreckage is still very clear here. It's yeah, very sad, eerie place. I now have to cut my way down to the spot where I'm going to be pitching tonight, and I think I'm going to have to take a bearing. There's no path, but it's pretty much straight downhill, so somewhere in that valley is tonight's camp spot. Well, I've made it to tonight's camp spot. Check this out. It's one of the best. Sun's just about to dip down on the other side of the valley there, making the most of the last rays of sunshine. And I spent a few minutes dithering about where I'm going to pitch the tent for tonight. So what have we got? Let me describe it for you. It's a lovely valley, this, and there's a very big, broad, dry space there, which is very tempting. But at the moment the winds are northerly, and it's a bit chilly and gusty, and it's blowing straight down the valley. So that nice, tempting spot is catching a lot of the wind. So what I've done is I've decided to put the tent just there, which is on a little sort of shelf above the main valley, and it's sheltered by this nice bank which is protecting it from most of the wind. Right, that's the tent pitch. It's not a perfect pitch, the ground's a bit lumpy, but it'll certainly do for tonight. I've got the tent set quite low. Right, sun's gone down, it's getting quite chilly, so now I'm going to get inside and get warm. Well, that's better. So I'm in my sleeping bag, on my pad, and the pad's on a silver foil, so I'm going to be really nice and warm and cozy. And I think I'm going to make myself a warm drink and also a hot water bottle to stick inside the sleeping bag, because I deserve a bit of luxury. Don't expect it's going to get light until about 8 o'clock in the morning, so plenty of time to get nice and warm and comfortable. Wow, this is all nice now. Nice warm drink. I tend to have just a quarter of an OXO cube dissolved in a mug of water. It's nice, hearty, flavoursome, bit of salt in there and stuff as well, so it's good after a day's walking, and easy as well. OXO cubes are indestructible in the rucksack. I've got a hot water bottle by my feet. It's amazing the difference it makes. It really is. It's got me kind of all feeling nice and comfortable. I've spent a lot of nights in this tent, and it's kind of like home from home. You kind of develop your own system, I guess, you know, for where things go and how things are arranged so you can find them, and what works best to kind of a process of what you do first, what you do later. And that sort of practice and routine makes things, I think, a lot easier, because I don't have to think too much about what am I doing next or where does this go. I've kind of, it's all kind of evolved over time, so I've got like a system, so everything goes quite smoothly. So what I'll next do is cook my tea, I guess. So then the other question is, how are the trail runners doing and how is the tent doing? Well, the trail runners were absolutely fine, good grip and really comfortable. They're outside the tent at the moment. They got a bit damp going through some boggy bits, but the waterproof socks, as shown, you can probably see them, these are them hanging up to air and possibly dry out a bit. Worked fine, so my feet perfectly dry. Not particularly warm, has to be said, but I don't know how much warmer they would have been in walking boots, to be honest, perhaps a little bit, but they're warming up fine now, so it wasn't a problem. My feet only felt cold when I stopped walking, to be honest. And the tent, well, these aren't extreme conditions. There is a sort of fairly stiff breeze, but I'm in a reasonably sheltered spot, and it's gone up a treat with no problem at all, so I've every confidence it's going to be fine. I have to say that the modifications I've done to the Lanshan do help. Well, things are going quite well. It's about 6:30 now, and I've made my tea, and here you go. What is it? Salmon and broccoli pasta. I've learned never to trust how much liquid they think you should add to rehydrate these. It's usually about double. Anyway, so there you go. It's looking quite tasty, actually. It's one of my favourites, this one. So I'm looking forward to tucking into that. But I must say, it's getting chilly outside. I just checked the temperature outside, and it is 1 degree. So it's dropped quite significantly in the last hour or two. I wonder what it'll get down to tonight. Okay, right, enough chat. Time for food. Well, look at me all bundled up. Got the warm hat on and the full jacket. Keep me nice and warm whilst I've been having my food, but that's now all done, all eaten, so I'm pretty much set for the night. Because the weather is a bit chilly and the temperature's dropping towards zero, I brought my water filter into the tent and raised it above the ground, so because I don't want the catechin filter freezing, which would destroy it. What else have I done? I've put in the gas cylinder, wrapped it up, and put it down at the foot of a sleeping bag so that the gas is nice and warm in the morning for making my morning brew. The water is already in the pot ready for my morning brew and porridge outside, so in the morning what I've got to do is get out the warm cylinder and fire up the hot water, so that'll be relatively painless, I think. What else? This is all housekeeping stuff, isn't it? And the last thing I'm going to do is, this is a wee dram. Now, some people take beer, some people take wine. I think if you're going to have a bit of a drink at the end of an evening, those are quite heavy ways of bringing along drinks. So I take a little bit of scotch, and actually this is a whiskey mac, mix of ginger wine and whiskey. So it's very nice and warming. Cheers, everyone. It's been a really good day's walking. Oh, it's the spot. Right, any more rubbish I can come out with? I don't think so. I think I've dried up for now. So in which case, I'll say goodnight, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Good morning. That was a great night's sleep. Slept like a log, really warm and nice and comfortable and snug. And woken up, there was a bit of rain in the night, so there's damp outside the tent. So I'm going to poke my nose out, see what the weather's like. Right, let's take a look outside. I think it could be quite gloomy. Oh my lord. Well, that feels really good in the morning, and a good quality cup of coffee, nice and warm. You can feel the warmth going down. So outside it's a bit gloomy. It's not a bit gloomy, it's very gloomy. Very low cloud, and the occasional burst of rain that comes with that sort of moderate breeze. The humidity is right up at 100%. So all in all, the kind of weather that makes you want to stay in the sleeping bag nice and cozy in the tent. But anyway, I'm going to be doing the same route regardless. It just means that I'm not in a huge hurry to get out of the tent this morning. I'm going to have my coffee and porridge and see how it goes. Right, that's breakfast done. Nice and full of warm food now. At least the spirit doesn't get you ready for the day. What else have I been doing? Getting things organised, charging the phone, ready for filming today, things like that. Sorting out the water bottles and all that kind of thing. I don't want you to think that I've just been passing the time, desperately trying to find things to do to delay the moment when I have to get out of this nice warm sleeping bag. No, nothing like that at all. And now for the sound which I think is the most depressing sound whenever you're out camping. It's undoing the airbed. Because that sound means that it's no longer comfy sleepy time, it's up and about time. Okay, been busy, dressed up and about, and what I've done is I've dropped the inner of the tent. So the way I've got it set up is that once I've dropped the inner, I've still got the footprint in place. This is a polycro footprint I made myself. It seems to be working okay. And that means that I've got a reasonably dry surface just to sit on and do the final bits of packing and put my shoes on, etc. So what I'm going to do now is all my kit, look at that immaculately neat piles of stuff. All that kit will end up in my rucksack now, and then when that's all done, I'll emerge like a butterfly from a chrysalis out into the outdoors. And so the last things that will get packed in probably be the just the outer of the tent. Look at this, glorious. If you like being inside the inside of a cloud, then this is glorious. This was the camp spot last night. It's kind of like on a shelf just above the sort of flood plain of this torrential stream. Let's have a look at it. And bottom line is, it was absolutely fine. Partly because I've got the poles set very low, so the gap between the inner and the ground is as little as possible, really, and that really helped keep me warm and keep sheltered. And what I did was to pitch it so that the this door was facing into the wind. I've got very strong pegging at the foot of the door, and that's coupled with a very long guy line reaching out to a nice meaty peg somewhere in the ground there. Alright, after all that, tent's finally packed away. This is the space where I was. I think it's obligatory, isn't it, when you're doing a video, to show that you've left no trace of where you were. So here's where I was, and absolutely no trace I was there last night at all. I was hoping that the weather would have cleared up a bit by now, but it's proving to be remarkably obstinate. There is a bit of a breeze, so anyway, what you're going to do, time to hit the trail. And I've got to get moving because I've been a bit slow getting going today, and I'm conscious that we're nearly at the winter solstice, so haven't got too much daylight to use. Done several miles now. Ground's pretty boggy, as you can see, scroaching through this, but it's fine. And the cloud base is quite low. I think I'm just about to climb up into the clouds, so I'm going to lose what views there are. Not a lot. And I'm just about to start climbing up, I think, towards the ridge. So there's a bit of an uphill section coming up. That is not, of course, why I've chosen to stop and do some videoing and just admire the view. But behind me, that's the hill, and that's my path. It looks a bit scroachy all the way, probably. So I managed to get a signal, check the weather forecast, and it looks like it's going to be pretty much like this all day today. So if we get a view from the top, then great, but I'm not expecting it. I want to talk about how the trail runners are getting on. These are Topo Athletic Mountain Racer 2s, but the main thing is that they've got a very substantial sole, and it's a Vibram sole, so they've got very good grip even in the wet. So crossing over that stream just now was no problem at all. The other thing that might not come across very well is just how quiet it is here. There's a faint murmur of a breeze and the sound of the streams in the distance. But apart from that, it's really still and quiet. I'm off-road now, broken off from the path to go up to the tops more directly, and I've come across this fantastic area where the rock is absolutely smooth, as if it's been sort of ground down to a perfectly flat surface. There's sort of a few boulders scattered on top of it, but it makes for very good walking. Absolutely easy underfoot, incredibly flat. What other adjectives can I use? It's flat rock and quite unusual. Apart from that, there's nothing much to be seen really. All around is grey murk. That's the direction I'm heading off into. So I'm just working on the compass. Somewhere up there is a summit. I have made it to the ridge now, but you're going to have to take my word for it, aren't you? Because you can't really see anything of the ridge. There's a faint outline through the gloom that way, but reassuringly there's a blooming great cairn there, so we know where we are, and there's no sign of any views. It's pretty murky. So I'm going to, I think, just stop for a chocolate bar and a bit of a breather and admire this magnificent vista. It's funny, you know, okay, it's a bit gloomy, it's a bit cool and damp, but somehow it's exhilarating as well, you know. Quite comfortable, quite warm. The walking's not too difficult for me, so it is strangely quite good fun. I am at the top, that's the summit cairn, but there's no other evidence that this is the top, because all around is gloomy, foggy murk. I just checked the weather forecast. The Met Office says it's going to be foggy today, and for once they're not wrong. It's pretty, well, it's so frustrating because I know that both to the north and to the south of here there's fantastic vistas. I was kind of hoping that the cloud would part as I came up to this high spot and I'd be rewarded with fantastic views and inversions. Wrong. Right, from here, not too far to go. There's a bit of a steep drop and a bit of a steep climb, and then another bit of a steep drop, and then that's pretty much it, done for today. So can afford to take it easy and enjoy this marvellous situation. Can't believe there's nobody else up here, really. So the air temperature is about 3 degrees, coupled with a fairly fresh breeze. That means that the wind chill is below 0, so I'm all bundled up. I'm wearing a base layer, and I got my down puffy over that. There's kind of a mid layer, and then my shell, waterproof as a sort of windproof shell, really. It's raining now. The waterproof's on. Oh, that's better. Just sheltered by the wall of the cairn now. So I guess the question in my mind is, what are the conditions going to be like lower down? Right, I've had 10 minutes, something to eat and drink, and in that time, actually, if anything, the weather's brightened up a little bit, and the wind's dropped a little bit, so I'm feeling a bit more optimistic about tonight's camp. I think what we'll do is get down, find the spot, get the tent up and get warm. So time to get out into the wild and wet again. But as the saying goes, it's all downhill from here. Can't quite believe it. Sun's come out. There's a bit of blue sky and I've actually got some views. That's and over in the distance. So all of a sudden the whole feeling has come up, and look at this. I wonder if I can get it on video. I've got a Broken Spectre down there. Going to take a photo of it now. So it's still a blustery day, and you can probably tell by the way that the clouds are scudding across the sky behind me. It's still a bit fresh and breezy. I've got a bit of a view down towards the Llyn, but for the moment I'm enjoying actually being able to see more than 50 yards. You can see the gusts of wind blowing across the surface of the lake. That's not so good because I'm not sure how sheltered I can get. Must confess I've been in really two minds as I've been walking here about what's the best thing to do, because the wind is blowing across the surface of the lake and it's looking quite breezy, and the clouds are a bit ominous. There's a bit of blue and then there's a big dark area, so my thinking about what to do has been changing with the minute. But it's a nice flat-ish, dry-ish spot, and more importantly behind me it's quite well sheltered by a rise, so the prevailing northwesterlies aren't affecting this patch too much. We're in a little bit of the shelter of the hill, so we'll stop here for the night. Right, status report. In the tent, everything's set up, everything's sorted out, ready for tonight. I'm in my sleeping bag, getting nice and warm. My hot water bottle is warming my feet up very nicely. I've got a bit of stuff hanging up on the tent, in the tent, sort of today's trousers and things, just airing them a bit. I think they might dry out a little bit. The inner that was a little bit damp when it was packed away has dried out really nicely in the breeze, and it looks like the outer's drying out nicely as well in the fresh breeze outside. Don't know if the camera's showing it, but the inner is just gently wafting about, but I think we're in a good sheltered spot here, so I'm quite happy, and there's a lovely view out of the front door of the tent. It's a bit cold when I open it though. So right now it's all about getting settled in, getting warm. Next thing on my jobs list is to make a hot drink for myself. It's still a bit early for supper, but a hot drink and a chocolate bar is definitely going to be the next thing that I do. It's got dark pretty quickly this evening. I have my meal, which is a chicken tikka, which was not too bad. It's a nice big portion anyway, which certainly filled me up. And the inside of the sleeping bag's really nice and warm now, so I'm quite toasty. So now it's just nice to be able to spend quite a lot of time just relaxing inside the tent, nice and warm and comfortable and secure. So I'm going to settle down now. Now in the morning, I've got to get up quite early because, you know, family and stuff, I've got to get back home. So that means that I'll be setting my alarm for, you know, well before first light. So it's going to be one of those times where we're going to be packing up, making my coffee and all this kind of thing in the dark. And when it's first light, I'll be able to start walking. Right, with all that said, cheers, thanks for watching so far. See you in the morning. Good morning. And it definitely still is morning. Coming up 6 o'clock, I'm going to be getting up, getting ready, getting dressed and all that kind of stuff in the dark, and possibly hitting the trail in the dark as well, which could be interesting. Been a bit breezy overnight, but the tent's doing absolutely fine, and it's not that humid, so there's no condensation. Hooray! Right, here we are in the dark, packing up the tent, and I'm so glad with the reflective tabs and the reflective cord on my pegs. It's going to make life a lot easier. Right, there we are, all packed up. I don't think there's any trace I was here. It's a bit difficult to tell in this light. And somewhere over there should be the rising dawn. Well, this could be fun. Off we go. Can you see me through the gloom? It's getting light now. I could probably get away without the head torch, to be honest. So I just turned it off to see how my eyes got accustomed to the gloom. Very good walking. It seems like ages since I did any walking in the dark. This is really, it's kind of almost surreal, but really nice. A bit brighter now, and I've dropped down not too far to go back to the car now, and just hit the tree line. So that was a pretty good couple of days. I really enjoyed it, you know, despite appearances at times. So this thing of 3 season, 4 season, whether it's footwear, whether it's tents or whatever, I think it's a load of hokum. 3 season, 4 season, it really doesn't tell you anything, doesn't mean anything. So if people say a tent is a 3 season tent or a 4 season tent, it totally depends on the conditions you're using it in, the location you're pitched at, and how you're using it. Same with sleeping bag, you know, same with footwear. So mid-December, people will generally say these are, you know, normally technically be 4 season conditions, but it hasn't been that cold. There's no snow on the ground, so using trail runners has been absolutely fine, comfortable and dry. And the same with the tent. You know, people would say Lanshan's not a good winter tent, but you know, by careful pitching in a good location and being mindful of the conditions and stuff, I've been absolutely fine, and the tent has performed perfectly. And more importantly, it weighs much less than tents that would be labelled as 4 season tents. So I guess my thinking is make up your own mind about the gear that's right for you. Don't just think that you've got to have a 4 season tent because you're camping in the winter, and don't think you've got to have boots because you're walking in the winter. It ain't necessarily so, in my humble opinion. Well, perhaps not so humble, eh? If you've enjoyed this trip, then subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more of my adventures on there for you to enjoy.